The diplomatic station orbited the gas giant thresholds of in a neutral meeting ground where 100 species conducted their delicate dance of interstellar politics. Stephanie Chen had been assigned as cultural liaison to the Varaxian delegation, a species whose warrior culture had dominated 3 sectors for millennia. They were apex predators in every sensate feat of muscle, scales like armor plating, and a reputation that made neighboring civilizations tremble. Stephanie found the assignment fascinating. The Varaxians were proud, honorable, and surprisingly curious about the strange little humans who'd recently emerged onto the galactic stage with their patchwork ships and infectious optimism. It was during a cultural exchange event that young Crystal approached her. The Varaxian Kabali, 30 years old, practically an infant by their standards, had been shadowing his parents through the diplomatic functions. His scales still held the iridescent shimmer of youth, and his eyes burned with unbridled curiosity. Human Stephanie Crystal rumbled in his developing voice. I have questioned that parents will not answer directly. Stephanie smiled, setting down her datapad. Sure, Crystal, what would you like to know? The young Varaxian's tail swished with nervous energy. Where do babies come from? Behind her, Stephanie heard Timothy Rodriguez, her fellow liaison, choke on his recap. Several nearby diplomats fell silent. Ambassador Vexcor and his mate Valana Crystal's parents froze mid-conversation across the hall. Stephanie considered her options. She could deflect, give some diplomatic non-answer, or redirect to the parents. That's what protocol suggested. But she'd spent 6 months learning Varaxian culture, and she knew one thing about them. They valued truth above all else. Half-truths and evasions were considered grave insults. Well, Stephanie began, settling into her chair and gesturing for Crystal to sit. The biological answer or the cultural answer? Both, the cub said eagerly, his attention fully locked on her. Timothy approached, concern evident on his face. Steph, maybe we should. It's fine, Tim, she said quietly. Truth is sacred to them. Remember. Stephanie turned back to Crystal. Biologically, Varaxian reproduction involves genetic material from both parents, combined during a mating cycle that's triggered by seasonal hormone changes. Your mother carried you in an internal egg sac for approximately 18 months before you emerged. Am I correct so far? Crystal nodded enthusiastically. Yes, but parents speak of it in metaphors. Moon cycles and spirit bonds. Never direct explanation. That's the cultural part, Stephanie explained. Many species, including Varaxians, wrap reproduction in ritual and poetry because it's sacred. It's not just biology, it's the creation of new life, the continuation of your people. She leaned forward. Humans do the same thing. We tell young children about storks delivering babies, or seeds being planted. But when they're ready, we explain the truth. Do humans share genetic material through physical intimacy? The female carries the developing child for 9 months, then gives birth. It's painful, dangerous, and one of the bravest things our species does. Dangerous. Crystal's scales rippled with concern. But humans are so fragile. Exactly. Timothy interjected, warming to the topic despite his earlier hesitation. Human females risk death every time they give birth. Before modern medicine, many died in the process. Even now, with all our technology, it's still risky. Stephanie nodded. That's why humans consider mothers warriors in their own right. They fight a battle inside their own bodies to bring new life into the world. The young Varaxian processed this, his predatory mind clearly wrestling with the concept. So human females are battle-scarred from creating life. Many bear physical marks. Yes, Stephanie confirmed. Stretch marks on their skin, surgical scars, changed bodies. We consider them badges of honor. Ambassador Vexcor had approached during the conversation, his massive form tense. Human Stephanie, he growled, his voice carrying an edge. This is inappropriate discussion for a cub. Stephanie stood, meeting the ambassador's gaze without flinching, a sign of respect in Varaxian culture. With respect, Ambassador, your son asked me a direct question. Would you have me dishonor him with evasion? The ambassador's scales flushed, darker sign of internal conflict. His mate, Valana, placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. She speaks truth, my heart, the cub asked. She answered with honor. But the details, Vexcor began, were clinical and respectful, Valana continued. She explained not just biology, but meaning. This is what we claim to value, is it not? Crystal looked between his parents and Stephanie, confusion evident. Did human do wrong things? Stephanie knelt to the cub's level. Your parents are surprised because humans handle these questions differently than Varaxia. We debate when young ones are ready for certain truths, But I believe you asked because you were ready to hear it. Timothy added, it's actually a compliment to your parents, Crystal. You asked because you're curious and intelligent. That's because they raised you well. The X-score scales gradually lightened to their normal hue. He studied Stephanie for a long moment before speaking. In Vraxian tradition, when Cub asks the life question, they are testing if adults trust them with truth. It is coming-of-age moment. I didn't know, Stephanie admitted. Nor did we expect you to answer, Valana said. But her tone held something like approval. Most species, when asked by Vraxian Cub, panic or redirect. You simply told truth, as if it were a natural thing. It is natural, Timothy said. Humans believe kids should get honest answers when they're brave enough to ask hard questions. Dexcore's mandibles clicked a Varaxian laugh. Horrified, they said we would be. Council warned us that humans have no filter, no proper boundaries. He looked at his mate. Perhaps this is why they survived their violent world. They faced truth head-on, even when uncomfortable. Stephanie smiled. We've learned that hiding from reality doesn't make it less real. Better to understand it and deal with it. Crystal's scales brightened to a pleased yellow. Thank you, human Stephanie. You honored my question. As the Vraxian family departed, Timothy turned to Stephanie. You know this is going to be in every report about today's session, right? Human explains reproduction to apex predator child, survives encounter. Stephanie laughed. Let them write it. Maybe it'll teach the galaxy something about humanity. We don't treat truth like it's dangerous. We treat it like it's necessary. Above them, Threshold 7 continued its eternal orbit, while inside the station, barriers between species crumbled one honest answer at a time.